what we're hearing right now, the difference between optics and substance, perception and reality.
Jonathan, this is so important at this point, and every official that I've spoken with today, particularly those in Eastern Europe that really know how Russia operates and that really know the Russian tactics, they say we'll believe it when we see it. Yes, it may sound encouraging. Yes, this may be optimistic, but we've seen Russia do this before. They say A, but in reality they do B. I'm also reminded that when you look at the troops in Eastern Ukraine, this is a war that's been going on for 8 years. Sometimes they pull them back, but then they bring them back. So there is a lot of concern about just how honest Russia is being right now. And I would also point to the words of the NATO Secretary General who's just speaking right now. And he says what we're looking at this point is Russia, but he also mentions China. He says these are two authoritarian countries that are operating together to dictate the terms for smaller countries. So the tone really, when you look at the European side, and I would argue it also applies to the United States, NATO, and the Western allies, is that at this point they really don't believe what they see. They want to see the proof, and at this point they're not getting the evidence that they were hoping to get.
AMH, your reaction?
Well, we haven't heard yet, Jonathan, from the White House, but I imagine, as Maria is saying, this will be very much so they want to see the proof. The Ukrainian foreign minister took to Twitter about 45 minutes ago saying we have a rule in Ukraine. We don't believe what we hear. We believe what we see. And I imagine that is exactly what the White House is going to say. We cannot discount the urgency we have seen from this White House. They have moved the U.S. Embassy personnel from Kiev to Lviv, which is just about 70, 80 kilometers from the Polish border. They are clearly concerned based on the intelligence that they are getting. And then, of course, you have the NATO Secretary General this morning saying everything is in place still for a Russian attack. And when you look at what Russia was saying in terms of pulling back the troops, it was a video with the Defense Ministry spokesperson showing this video, very much so like yesterday's performance from President Putin and Lavrov and the Defense Minister, very much so, Jonathan, for a domestic audience.
The Chancellor Scholz with Vladimir Putin today, Maria, that meeting ongoing. Are we expecting a news conference from that?
We are expecting it, and the tone will be so important, and everything, in fact, about this meeting between Olaf Scholz and Vladimir Putin will be key, from the tone, the mannerism, and the way the two interact. The German the German Chancellor is under huge pressure to show that Germany under Scholz is tough on Germany, that there will be real sanctions, and Germany, by the way, is willing to take the economic pain that will come with sanctions. And by the way, the biggest question of all, it's Nord Stream 2. Yesterday, when he was asked again, Olaf Scholz says if there's an invasion, we, quote, will know what to do. Whether or not he tells that to Vladimir Putin to his face in his home territory, that is the key.
Just one final question from me to you, AMH. Help us all understand what happened in Russia's State Duma today. They're trying to get the Russian president to sign off on something quite complex, nuanced and complicated. And I want you to go through it piece by piece to help us understand what's happening.
It's incredibly complex, and we should note that Russia has its own domestic politics the way every single nation does. So what you have is one group that was pushing for the president to outright say that these regions in Donbass, where there's been fighting since 2014, 2015, there's been fighting in East Ukraine for years. We should make that clear. They want to recognize them as part of Russia. Now, Ukraine immediately says this would go against the Minsk Accords, and right now what we do know is that Russia helps supply these areas, but they are out there on their own. You have separatists fighting from each regions in these areas. What I think is interesting is potentially, Jonathan, this could just be a leverage point for President Vladimir Putin. What he really wants is those Minsk Accords, the way Russia interprets them, because it's ambiguous, the way Russia and Ukraine interprets the second Minsk Agreement signed in 2014 under President Petro Poroshenko for Ukraine, which ended a ceasefire, by the way. That is why those agreements came into account. Under those Minsk Accords, what President Vladimir Putin would want to do is basically have political control over these regions in East Ukraine. And with that political control, those regions could block foreign or domestic policy that Ukrainians are trying to pursue in Kiev, notably joining the European Union or joining NATO.
Anne-Marie, AMH down in DC with Maria Tadeo. A news conference taking place right now with the Russian leader and his German counterpart, Olaf Scholz, Vladimir Putin on the screen at the moment. When we start to get some headlines, we'll work through them for you. For the market right now, at least, it's a bounce in equities.